Welcome back to another episode of the Zero Empty Spaces podcast, episode 66, with Design Center of the Americas resident artist Elizabeth Vitale, here from her beautiful space at the DCOTA, ahead of our grand opening next Friday, June the 13th. If you didn't know about Zero Empty Spaces, myself, Evan Snow, and my business partner, Mr. Andrew Martineau, started an initiative to activate vacant commercial real estate spaces so talented artists like her can have space to create and collaborate affordably outside their homes. It's led to a myriad of win-win-win benefits with the first 33 spaces we've activated over the last 6 years now across 4 states, with over 750 artists having come through the program, having changed hundreds of artists' lives thousands of times over. The point of the podcast is to connect you with the talented artists like her that make the program what it is. So without much further ado, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you initially got started in the arts?
I started in the arts in probably middle school. I loved art. I joined the art club, and I knew I wanted to be an artist. And when I was in high school, I started embroidery, and I embroidered on everything. But that was my media. I used thread, and I just had an affinity with it. I was drawn to it. I don't know why, but I was really into the color and the texture of the stitches, and I did like little tapestries. And when I got a little bit older, I learned how to meditate, and I remember embroidering like peace symbols and just stuff that related to meditation and the dove or the swan and just different things. But I was serious about becoming an artist, so I decided to major in art in college, and to learn how to draw. I really wanted to learn how to draw, and did the best I could. But I also incorporated the stitch with the drawings or the paintings. That just kept following me. That was the thread. The thread.
The connected thread.
It did. It connected. Yes.
Where did you go for undergrad?
I went to State University of West Georgia in Carrollton, Georgia. Don't ask how I ended up there. And then when I graduated college, the undergrad, I became a teacher. But after 6 years of teaching, I decided to take a leave of absence and go to graduate school. So I rented out my house, and I went to Tyler School of Art, which is part of Temple University, and I stayed there for 2 years and majored in fiber arts, and that's where I started using a sewing machine, and I found the sewing machine to be really valuable for mark making and drawing, and through my whole thesis work, I used a sewing machine to create my art. I missed the hand stitching, but I just focused with the sewing machine and some fabric, and it was incredible. It was a wonderful journey, beginning of the journey.
Yeah, and the journey's...
It's still going. It's been going for years.
Yeah.
Up and down. I was a teacher for 30 years.
With
the Broward County school system. I did go teach in college a little bit. I taught at State University of West Georgia. Called me and had me come there and teach a year. I did that, and now I'm retired, and I teach a little bit part-time.
And fiber art is certainly emerging, but maybe not everybody's so familiar with it. So what kind of drew you initially to the what made it interesting and exciting for you to want to pursue versus the traditional drawing or painting route?
I think it must be the tactile, the fiber, the thread. It was just, it's much more tactile. I think I had an affinity for it. Now, the weird thing about this is my mother, back in the Great Depression, she said she worked in a factory with textiles, but she never sewed. I just was drawn to it. I think it must be an innate, just attraction to it. The thread.
And how has your approach evolved from your earliest hand-stitched pieces to the machine-based abstract works and kind of using the sewing machine and coming and going in between there?
When I did experiment with different substrates. When I was at Tyler, I found something that's called Solvay, and it's a water-soluble fiber.
Wow.
And Solvay looks like plastic, and I sewed on it and put it through my sewing machine, and I drew on it. And if you sew on it enough, it makes it stable, like you're weaving, makes it an actual piece of fabric, and then you wash out the Solvay, and you're just ending up with thread. And I was really, that's what I used to create my thesis work. This substrate of Solvay, and if you sew on it enough, and I don't have that work with me, it's at home.
Sure.
Because I stopped doing that. It becomes 3D. If you sew on it enough and work on it right, you can make it come out in 3-dimensional. It's a wonderful substrate to use.
Well, it seems like there's definitely some different dimensions and materials in your current body work. So for those that can see on the camera here, how do you describe your work in its current iteration in 2025?
It's more transparent. That's I'm really interested in transparency and depth, having depth to my work. And there's layers. There's layers to it. And I start off with marks, and I kind of bring it forward. But I like being able to look through it and see other shapes. And the work resembles a little bit more of a landscape, even though it's abstract. It's abstract, but there's a reference to the landscape in it, or places. I would say places, and so my work I think has more depth, and that's what I'm interested in, is creating depth through layers.
And what materials and mediums are in?
I use printmaking. I print using the gel plate on papers, transparent papers. It's deli paper, and the deli paper is thin. You can see through it, and that's what I love. I love putting down a paper and being able to see through other forms, and then stitching over it, and the stitching adds movement. I'm interested in movement, and you could see here where maybe this is a landscape right here, and the stitching is movement. So that's part of my whole expressive expression, art expression, is having movement and depth.
Any other? Is this gesso or?
Oh, okay. So it's transparent papers with gel medium. I also draw. I draw into it. I make marks I did put paint down, and I make marks with the tool. But there is drawings, and then there's the stitching, which I weave the stitching through it, and paint. I actually painted. So it's really a process of many techniques.
Which actually, since you mentioned that you weave the stitches through it, and they can see, I guess, what they see on the front of the canvas. Can we spin the canvas around?
That's interesting. Yes. Yeah, you can see it. The funny thing about that is when I was in graduate school, and part of my investigation, I was always turning my work around.
Right. To show the actual...
To see what it looked like from the back. But so you could see...
Yeah. There's a lot that goes into this.
Yeah. The stitching.
And so these are all done by hand.
All done by hand.
So between the stitching, we can spin it back now. The stitching, the
gel printing,
the conceptualizing of the concept, and all things considered, how much time goes into a work like
hours
this?
and hours, because I put a lot of stitching into it. I felt like I needed to break up the space in a different way, so I started stitching even more. It's a process of, just what does the painting need? What is it asking for? And so a lot, hours, 100 hours.
100 hours?
I mean, I can't even, maybe 50 to 100, a lot of stitch, especially the stitching hours and a larger piece like this.
And being a artist that has a long career of creating and teaching with the masters, at this stage of your career, how are you pricing a work like this?
With a lot of thought.
That's what we're building up to.
Yeah, a lot of thought, and about the time I put into it, the materials, my education, my expertise, and those are the things I take into consideration. And I would probably say $2,000. I mean, at least.
Justified.
I can't even. I won't throw out a price right now. But it's definitely taken the time and everything else into my consideration.
Well, I know we've talked about this, offline before, per square foot, per square inch, But and I'm glad, I appreciate you taking the time to correlate that to the viewer, to the patron, to the future potential collector.
Yeah.
To get a perspective of how much time, thought, practice, materials, effort, studying,
education. I can have a lot of education
goes into these works. Now, with that being said, now that we know what's gone in behind the scenes and actually behind the canvas, what do you hope and wish the viewer, the patron, to know, to learn, to see, to get from experiencing and viewing and interacting with your artwork?
To see this, I think the spirit that I put into it, or the spirit that comes from it, and the energy. I feel like there's something, it's something about energy. That's what I feel like my work is, also about energy and spirit, but in the land or out in the world, I think, because I feel like this is a place. There's a place here, and there's energy coming, all different types of energy, natural energy, natural forms, or like earth forms, and that's what I feel like a lot of my work is about. It has to do with energy.
And you highlighted this, I believe, with these pieces, which were part of the Earth Day exhibit that we did here.
Yeah.
And I can see that, and many people will see different things.
It's true.
I often say art can be many different things to many different people. Art can be an investment. Art could be interior design. Art could be storytelling. Art could be history.
Yes.
So that's why I appreciate you correlating, what from your perspective, from the artist's perspective, from your story's perspective, what you would hope, because we're going to have a lot of people come here for the grand opening next week.
Yes.
And they might see it, but connecting to that story and your journey certainly helps gain a better appreciation for the work. Also, this is one large canvas, but this is one series behind you.
Yes.
How do these pieces come together?
It has having to do with land and places. They came together as a series. I wanted to stick with a certain color palette, and I wanted there to be something consistent throughout it. The color, the color, the palette, and the size, and it has to do with, again, the landscape, and abstraction of a landscape. There is some actually in these pieces. Another technique is added. I did Xerox transfer.
Wow.
I'm really interested in trees. I love trees, and I go for walks. And so this series also came out of my love for trees, definitely in the land.
And you mentioned that there's this contrast of nature versus man-made textures as a central theme in your recent work. Can you elaborate on what draws you to that dichotomy and how it manifests in your pieces?
Yeah, I love the contrast of the man-made. Like in this one, it has this wheel or something. Oh no, this was a street
Pothole cover?
pothole cover. Yes, that I took a picture of. And so I like the contrast of man-made and, or like machine-made versus natural forms.
Yeah, there is a
Yeah.
lot of depth. There's a lot going on here. So I appreciate you taking the time to explain that. As a retired art educator now, but teaching part-time at the Boca Museum School, how has your teaching experience influenced your own creative journey?
How was it? It made me want to do it more. I'm sorry. When I would sit there and watch those kids work, I would say, oh, you know what? I think it inspired me to start working when I retired and say, this is what your time. This is your time now.
For you?
For me. And so it made me take advantage. It inspired me in a way to like, okay, look at all these kids. They have all this freedom, this time they can work. And when I have the time,
right.
More time, I will work.
And now you've done it.
Yeah.
And you've been doing it. And you joined us initially at the Boca Raton Innovation Campus, the former IBM headquarters.
Yes.
With your friend Janet right next to us, your studio mate. And then when this space became available, you were first to hop on it here at the DCOTA in Delray Beach, which is certainly a very interesting space with being such a design-centric showroom with everything anybody could ever imagine or want for a home. But now that you've had these experiences of being a student, of teaching, of pursuing your art full-time, what's one of the most important lessons that you hope to pass on either to students, either young or adults or anybody that might want to pursue art, taking your classes, listening to this podcast? What would you like to inspire for a budding emerging artist?
Yeah. Well, I say persevere. Even if you just try to even if you have thoughts that are negative or thoughts, oh, I can't do it, I can't, but persevere, keep trying and don't listen to the negativity. You have to have a passion for it because that's what drives me. If you don't have a passion, you're just going to come to a stop. I mean, the passion keeps you going. And so if that's what you love, then that's what you should do.
Then it doesn't feel so much like work.
Because it's coming from, your heart and your mind, and you got to just follow it. You got to follow it and be true to yourself.
And I commend artists like yourself that you're making the work that you feel called to make.
Yeah.
Not, and no disrespect to landscape artists or artists that paint pretty pictures of flowers, but there's a lot of artists that are making work to sell commercially, understandably, and everybody's got to, in their own unique financial situation, and people have to make a living and cover their expenses and so on and so forth. But this work, this is, years and years of lived experience of studying, of also your own travels and going to museums and going to galleries and listening to, and reading books and all the things has amassed to this current stage of your career. So at this stage of your journey, how do you stay creatively energized, especially when balancing, supposed to be retired, but teaching and making your own artwork?
How do I stay balanced?
Or how do you stay creatively energized?
When I come here, I get energized.
Right.
I do. I do. I get energized. I get energized when I'm around creative people, when I'm around my creative friends, and going to places to feed my spirit. Also being by myself, having time, solitude is
perfect word.
It's the perfect re-energizing thing you can do for yourself. give yourself time by yourself, to be alone.
To be with your thoughts.
Yes, to be with your thoughts.
And with meditation.
With meditation, I learned meditation like, oh God, I think it was 1975, a long time ago.
Wow.
What would you call that's 50 years ago?
Wow.
Yeah. I learned meditation 50 years ago, and I try to be consistent. Of course, you go off. You don't do it some days, but yeah.
It's a practice, just like
it's a practice. Yeah.
Art is a practice, and it helps you practice.
It really does, and also yoga and exercise, taking care of yourself, loving yourself. Woo, is the key. You have to love yourself.
That's right, and I'm really glad that because solitude for some reason has come up so much lately in conversation, and it really is important. And people have asked of me as a highly functioning and multifaceted community builder and placemaker and creative entrepreneur. What do I do to refill my cup? And a lot of the same things: the yoga, meditation, mindfulness, but really, it's that time of solitude, even sitting in the sauna almost every morning.
Yeah.
Kind of gives me time to be with my thoughts, think about my day, think about where I want things to go. And, when everybody has a busy life. Everybody's doing a ton of things. But if you can set yourself up for success by having these foundations, including movement.
Yeah. Yes, moving.
And for all intents and purposes, I'm diabetic, so I have to be more mindful of my diet and what I put in my body. But eating a ideally clean, healthy, organic foods, I always say to be your best, you have to feel your best so you can do your best.
Yes, that's a good saying. Very good point.
And you got to set yourself up for that. And there's one other saying that just came up on a podcast the other day. And it's miracles happen at the intersection of grace and willingness.
I heard that.
It makes all the sense in the world.
When you're ready and willing, then the grace will happen. Like it'll come.
Yeah. If you're a good person, if you're centered, if you're balanced, and in yoga and meditation, they talk about the chakras aligning, the energy centers, similar to meridians. So. Yes. Let's. I could get woo-woo with you all day, but let's show them a little bit about your process in the studio. I'm sure they're interested to see, and then I'll show them what they can expect here at the grand opening.
Okay.
So why don't you show us a little bit about your process in the studio here?
Some of the thread that I use in my work is waxed linen thread, and when I'm stitching on this, it's a nice sturdy thread that it's very interesting to work with. And when I'm stitching on a canvas, sometimes I put the holes in first with a big needle, and then I take the thread and start stitching. But because it's canvas, it's thick, I put in the holes first. And so I'll put a few in and show you. One of the things I like about this thread is that after you're done stitching, if you hammer it down, it looks like it's part of the canvas, like it embeds itself into the canvas. Here we go. So, yeah. And then sometimes and some of this is intuitive. I sit and look at it and decide what does it need. Where do I want to go with these meandering lines of stitches? So this is the part. This is what I'm sitting here doing, and I try to come up. Sometimes I make up stitches too. I come up with interesting stitches or combinations. Like right over here, I made up this little twirling. It's not an actual embroidery stitch. It's just something I put together. So I try to just be creative. I guess we get bored. We don't want to do the same thing over and over.
Yeah. Variety is the spice of life.
Yes.
Something like that. Definitely very interesting. If they would like to engage with you, what are you open for? Classes, workshops, commission, buying, finishing work, finished work, your courses at the Boca Museum School, or what are you available for?
Well, definitely, they want to come see me here. I would teach privately. I do teach at the Boca Museum School in the fall, but not during the summer.
Okay.
I'm here for maybe private classes if anybody's interested. And I could be found here all summer.
Okay, fair enough. Where can they
Yes.
find you on social media?
Oh, I have an Instagram, Elizabeth Vitale Artist on Instagram.
Website?
And Elizabeth Vitale Art. I have my own website, Elizabeth Vitale Art.
Okay,
Yeah.
and we can find her at our grand opening Friday, June the 13th from 5 to 7 p.m. with the ribbon cutting at 6 p.m. We're also going to have other events here. Open studios will start after the grand opening. So lots of great stuff happening here at DCOTA. And the last question we like to end with on the podcast, what do you like the most about having a studio to create in outside your home?
Oh, gosh. Well, I think it would be the communal people, being with people. Yeah, it's the interesting people. It energizes me. And that's it.
Keeps the creative
It keeps
juices
the creative,
going.
yeah. It's being around other people, being able to share my work. You can't just do it and be in isolation. I think sharing.
That's right. Well, we're glad to have you share. We appreciate you joining the podcast. We look forward to having you join us here at DCOTA, 1855 Griffin Road, showroom B102 in Dania Beach, Florida, in Broward County. It's our 33rd space. So we'll have the grand opening Friday, June the 13th. Free event. We ask you RSVP. You'll even get a bonus. We're doing a after party tequila tasting event at Toro at the Le Meridien Hotel next door. We're right here near the airport, right off of 95. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out at Zero Empty Spaces, info@zeroemptyspaces.com. We do have a space or two actually available still if anybody would like to join us. 2 of 25 studios available. So we appreciate you being part of the program.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Amen.
I really appreciate it.
It's our pleasure. You've been a joy to have. And tomorrow's prices are not, yesterday's prices are not guaranteed tomorrow. So buy it today while you can. Cheers.
Thank you.